Okay, so last time we've discussed about definition and importance of industrial or organizational psychology. We also talked about job analysis and evaluation, as well as talent acquisition or talent management, and we ended our discussion with performance management. For this section 2 of our discussion, I'll be talking about training and development, employee motivation, employee engagement, organizational communication, leadership, group behavior, and organizational development. Let me start our discussion with this section, which is training and development. Training development is an important part of any organization or any business or any institution. This is to ensure that an employee is able to do his job well. Training is defined as the learning activity that is related to the current job of the employee and where its effectiveness will be based on application of skills on the job. This tackles current responsibilities and is given at a needs now basis, meaning what is needed for that employee to improve. Development, on the other hand, is a more future-oriented in such a way that it is a preparation for a future career goal, path, or job that is identified by the organization or the individual himself or herself. Okay, so in training development, proactive and a well-put training and development plans in an organization has proven its many advantages. Organizations with a good training plan are able to minimize productivity loss and operational costs due to human errors in carrying out a certain task. Because of training, organizations have been able to come up with better work plans and results to hit their bottom line. Okay? Now, the first step in training and development or in conducting training development is to conduct a needs analysis. Why do we need to conduct a needs analysis? Because we cannot conduct a training without a need for training. You're just wasting money if we're going to conduct a training without a need for it. Okay? That's why we need to conduct a needs analysis. Is the organization needing this kind of training? Are the employees really needing this kind of training or development program? In needs analysis, it is actually or basically divided into at least 3 ways. We can do organizational analysis, okay, which is allowing us to determine those organizational factors that either facilitate or inhibit training effectiveness. Ano-ano yung nandoon sa isang organization that could either hamper or could either improve and facilitate training effectiveness. We also have task analysis. Okay, so if the results of the organizational analysis indicate that a positive organizational climate for training exists, then the next thing to do is to conduct a task analysis. So in a task analysis, we're going to use the job analysis methods discussed earlier to identify the tasks performed by each employee. What are the conditions under which these tasks are performed, and the competencies needed to perform the tasks under the identified conditions. The knowledge, skills, and abilities and other characteristics are the KSAOs. Okay? Now we also have person analysis, which is the third and final step in the needs analysis process. And it is a process wherein we determine which employees need training. And in which areas do these employees need training at? Person analysis is based on the recognition that not every employee needs further training for every task performed. Okay? So how could we conduct a person analysis? We can base these data or information to our performance appraisal scores. We can also use interview, survey, and skills and knowledge tests. This would be objective and this would quantify really if who are the employees needing training, right? So next step is to develop the training, and in developing the training program, we use this sub steps wherein we establish our goals and objectives, and we motivate our employees to join or to attend the training program. Most of the time, people or employees do not have the motivation to join training. Okay, so our job in the human resources development or in the human resources department is to encourage our employees to join our training. So we can either use this incentivizing them, we can create a demand for a training, and we should inform our employees that this training would allow them to increase their skills and their effectivity in a certain job that they hold. The next step after developing a training program is conducting the training itself. And according to our sources, the most commonly used major types of training would be classroom training, individual training through distance learning, and on-the-job training. Classroom training could either be in the form of case studies, can also be in the form of simulation, can also be in the form of role playing, and it can also be in the form of behavior modeling. When we say behavior modeling, this is similar to role play, except that the trainees role play ideal behavior rather than the behavior they might normally perform. That's why it's called behavior modeling. Okay, there is a model, then they model the right behavior for a certain situation, for a certain task. Okay, we also have the term distributed learning and mass learning, which is common in classroom training. So the facilitator or the trainer can decide on if the learning should be distributed evenly for the whole duration, or it can be masked, learned all at once. Okay, so typically this type of question would be asked in the board exam, so please take note of this two terms, distributed learning and masked learning. Now, what is individual training through distance learning? Actually, that's the most popular type of educational instruction or mode of instruction here now at the pandemic. Most schools adopted distance learning, and I know for sure that you know what is distance learning. Okay, we are not going to have a face-to-face class, but we use the internet. We use the internet for lecture and for discussions. Okay. Now, we have common methods of on-the-job training. We can either use modeling, okay, also called social learning. Modeling is a vitally important method for learning, for training in organizations. As the name implies, what do the employees do here? Employees learn by watching how other employees perform or model a behavior. We also have job rotation. Okay, when we say job rotation, technically you are going to rotate jobs. Okay, it is an excellent on-the-job training method because an employee performs several different jobs within an organization. So iikot siya. Okay, that's why it's job rotation. It's especially popular for managerial training because it allows a manager trainee to experience and understand most, if not all, of the jobs within the organization that his subordinates will perform. In DOH, they actually do this. Nagre-rigodon sila within the organization. So all senior health program officers would be rotating. They're going to experience managing a certain health program different from what they are handling at the present moment. Okay, that's the job rotation. For example, in hotels, a manager would be rotating, front office manager would be rotating to another area of the hotel. Could be the food and beverage service, can also be to the housekeeping service. It depends on how the training development or the training section of that hotel would design the job rotation. Okay, we also have apprentice training, and this is where it's a similar type of on the job, but apprenticeship is the trainee or the apprentice is more involved, and apart from the actual conduct of the job, it has actually an accompanying lecture. Okay, right? So we also have coaching, and for coaching, we are using experienced employees as coaches or either professional coaches. And this is actually used for people who are um, new employees. Okay, they're coach. Okay, now we have mentoring. That's the last type. Wherein it's a form of coaching that has recently received much attention from organizations. A mentor is a veteran in the organization who takes a special interest in a new employee and helps him not only to adjust to the job, but also to advance in the organization. Typically, mentors are older in at least one level or position above the employee being mentored. So specifically, dapat mas mataas yung mentor ng isang position kaysa doon sa mentee. And not in the case of coaching. Okay? Right. So, next is, if we're going to conduct the training, we also ensure that there is a transfer of training. In psychology of learning, we've learned transfer of learning. Okay? Since training is a form of learning, we're also trying to transfer training, and we should ensure that the training is really transferred to that employee. There is a knowledge transfer or skills transfer. Okay, more similar the training situation is to the actual job situation, the more effective training will be. In other words, the transfer of training will be greater. Please take note of that. If the situation in the training is similar to the job or the actual job situation, since he or she really conducted that particular type of training or that job during the training, the transfer is easier and much greater when he or she goes to the actual job. Okay? Kasi mas konti yung variable na mag-change. Kung ano talaga ang naaral niya, yun ang mag-a-appear sa actual job, then maa-apply niya lahat ng kanyang natutunan during the training. Okay? Now, the most important, also one of the most important part of training and development is to evaluate the results of training. Okay? We have a lot of models in evaluating training results. But we can use research designs. We can either use the pre-test, post-test design or the Solomon 4 group. Okay, this is the most common pre-test and post-test design. As we all know, in research or in experimental research or experimental design, pre-test, post-test design would require a person or a training specialist or a human resource specialist to have a pre-test. Before conducting the training, the level of knowledge of the trainees would be checked or evaluated by giving a pre-test. And then after the conduct of the training, you administer the same test you administered before the conduct of the training, and then you compare the results. Since this is a group and you only used one group, you can use the t-test to check if there is a significant difference in the scores between the pre-test and the post-test. So if you have found out that a significant ang result ng t-test, then it could have significantly tell that your training is effective. Okay, we also have the Solomon for groups design, wherein one group will undergo training but will not take the pre-test. The second group will undergo training but will take the pre-test. A third group will not undergo a training but will take the pre-test. And the fourth group will neither undergo training nor take the pre-test. So parang may control. Aside from the control, meron yung hindi magta-take ng test pero magte-training, meron naman yung magte-train ng hindi kukuha ng test. At meron yung magte-training na kukuha ng test. Okay? So, kaya siya 4 groups. Right? Alright. So, how... there is also this evaluation criteria that we could use in evaluating training results. We have the employee reaction. Actually, in the Kirkpatrick's model, we have 4 levels. Level 1 is the reaction or the employee reaction. Level 2 is the employee learning. Ano ang natutunan nung trainees. Okay? Next is the application of training. Yan. How does the training impact the job, the actual job? Na-apply ba niya ang natutunan niya sa job? Okay? And next is the business impact and ROI. So that's the 4th level. Pero dito inisa-isa niya. Right? So that's the Kirkpatrick's model. When they ask you in the board exam, if an employee is using a Kirkpatrick's model and evaluating the results of the training, ano ang una niyang ginagawa? So you should answer employee reaction, checking the employee reaction. Ano ang nangyayari sa employee reaction? You are going to give a customer service satisfaction maybe. Basta it would consist of a Likert scale and would check how they are reacting to the training. Okay? Were the speakers great? Were the topics covered well? Was it delivered correctly, appropriately, etc.? Okay, for employee learning, actually, ginagamit ang pre-test or post-test design, at least for DOH. We're using that kind of evaluation. Okay, and also, when we say application of training, they checked the supervisors if that certain employee is already applying what he learned from the training. For the business impact and return on investment, umaakyat ba ang ating sales? If you're in the hotel, if you're in the retail industry, are you increasing your sales because of the training? Yes or no? Then you can see how is the training impacting the whole organization. Okay, so that is a brief discussion about training and development. Now, I would like to proceed with employee motivation. Okay, sinasabi natin, this is actually a very easy topic, motivation, but at some point, many people do not understand that employee motivation is as complex as other topics in industrial organizational psychology. Okay? I would like to briefly discuss theories of motivation. There are a lot of things to discuss here, but we just go briefly. Okay, anyway, I will be providing a notes that would summarize everything that I'm talking about, and also additional information that you might be needing before you take the board exam. Okay? In the theories of motivation, there are a lot of theories of motivation, and you might be wondering what is motivation. I would leave that as a assignment because we might be tackling that during the rationalization part. Okay? But one important theory in motivation is consistency theory. Okay, because this is talking about self-esteem. Consistency theory takes the relationship between self-esteem and motivation one step further by stating that employees with high self-esteem actually desire to perform at high levels, and employees with low self-esteem desire to perform at low levels. Okay? Right, so we know that self-esteem is your evaluation of your self-worth. It's not necessarily equal, or it's not necessarily equated to self confidence. You may have low self-confidence, but may at some point have high self-esteem. Okay, because self-esteem is your evaluation of your worth, your evaluation of your self-worth or your abilities. Okay? Excuse you as a person. Now, there are three types of self-esteem for the information of everyone: chronic, situational, and socially influenced. Okay? For chronic self-esteem, we know that this is the person's overall feeling about himself or herself. So how do you feel about yourself? That's your chronic self-esteem. I feel good about myself. Situational self-esteem is also called self-efficacy. Okay, how are you efficacious in a certain situation? That's your feeling about yourself in a particular situation, such as operating machine or talking to other people or presenting. How are you effective? How are you efficacious in that certain kind of situation? If you say that you're highly efficacious, then your situation self-esteem is high. And it may be high for some certain situations. It may be low for certain situations as well. We have socially influenced self-esteem by the term alone, socially influenced. This is the type of self-esteem wherein a person feels about himself on the basis of the expectations of others. Kaya siya socially influenced. Okay? You feel good about yourself because people expect you so much to do good and people know that you are good in that field. You feel bad about yourself because people see that you are not going to succeed and you're not effective as a leader. Okay? Dito pumapasok yung horn effect, halo effect, okay, Galatea effect, the other effects. Okay, please take note of those. And I know that you have tackled this in your discussion of industrial organizational psychology. This is actually being repeatedly asked in the board exam. Okay, so please familiarize yourself with that. Baka for this year, the season of the BLEP, they would also again ask this type of question. Okay, we also have the needs for achievement and power. Actually, tatlo ito. Needs for achievement, affiliation, and power. But for shorter, it's the needs for achievement and power or the human motivation theory by McClellan. Okay, sinasabi dito that employees differ in the extent to which they are motivated by the need for achievement, affiliation, and power. Magkakaiba tayo ng level ng need. Okay? So employees who have a strong need for achievement are motivated by jobs that are challenging and over which they have some control, whereas employees who have minimal achievement needs are more satisfied with when jobs involve little challenge and have a high probability of success. In contrast, employees who have a strong need for affiliation are motivated by jobs in which they can work with and help other people. Kaya siya affiliation. Mataas na need niya to affiliate with people. Okay? Finally, employees who have a strong need for power are motivated by the desire to influence others rather than simply to be successful. So, sino dito who will be a successful leader among the three? According to studies, according to research, it's the leader who has a high need for achievement. Okay? Next, we have the job characteristics model by Hackman and Oldham. According to JCT, or the job characteristics theory, or the job characteristics model, employees desire jobs that are meaningful, that provide them with the opportunity to be personally responsible for the outcome of their work, which is autonomy, and provide them with feedback of the results of their efforts. Now, if there is a discrepancy between the extent to which a job provides these three outcomes and an employee's need for these outcomes, the employee will be less motivated. So, tatlo yon. We have autonomy, Okay, test feedback. Okay, now according to the job characteristics theory, jobs will have motivation potential if they allow employees to use a variety of skills, that's called skill variety, and to connect their efforts to an outcome, which is task identification, which has a meaning, is useful, or is appreciated by coworkers as well as others in the society, which is termed as task significance. Okay? So, is, we are really having five, in the job characteristics model, meron tayong lima: autonomy, feedback, skill variety, task identification, and task significance. Yun. Okay? Pag ganun yung tinatanong sa board exam, automatic dapat ang sinasagot natin ay job characteristics model. Okay? We also have the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or needs hierarchy. We know for sure the pyramid and the 5 areas. We have the basic biological needs, or our physiological needs, that's at the base of the pyramid. We go higher, we have those safety needs or security needs. We go even higher, we have the social needs or belongingness in some other books. Then we go higher, we have the ego needs or self-esteem, and the highest is the self-actualization. That's a pinnacle of the pyramid. Now, according to Maslow, he said that we cannot progress from one level of the pyramid to another if we are not able to satisfy the preceding need. Okay. However, in later terms, somewhat learning or theories of Maslow, he said that it's not actually necessary for a certain person, an employer or a person, to satisfy first the preceding need before even achieving or moving towards or going up and satisfying the next need. Okay? So that's human potential. It's needs hierarchy. I know for sure that you are already familiar with this, right? Okay. Next, we have the ERG theory by Alderfer. Okay. ERG theory. Because of the technical problems with Maslow's hierarchy, Alderfer developed a needs theory that has only 3 levels. Okay. Other than the number of levels, the major difference between Maslow's theory and ERG theory is that Alderfer suggested that a person can skip levels. Ito na yung realization doon sa sinabi ni Maslow na hindi dapat makamove ang isang tao from a lower need to a higher need without fully satisfying the lower need. Now, the ERG theory said that we can skip levels. Okay, we can skip levels. Hindi necessary that we go with the first one before going to the next or the higher one. By allowing such movement, Alderfer has removed one of the biggest problems with Maslow's theory. So, pag tinanong sa board exam na sinabi ni Maslow na sa Maslow's theory na pwedeng mag-skip, false dapat. Okay? Kasi si Alderfer. Okay? And however, in a later realization, Maslow has realized that. Pero hindi yun yung assumption ng Maslow's hierarchy. Hindi yun yung original assumption ng Maslow's theory. Okay? Okay, Alderfer believes that for jobs and many organizations, advancement to the next level is not possible because of such factors as company policy or the nature of the job. Thus, the path to the next level is blocked and the employee becomes frustrated and places more importance on the previous level. Perhaps that is why in some situations or unions, they demand more money and benefits for their members rather than job enrichment. Okay? Right? So, we also have the two-factor theory by Herzberg. Kaya siya sinasabi na two-factor. We have the hygiene factors and the motivators. Herzberg believed that job-related factors could be divided into 2 categories, which I have mentioned earlier. For the hygiene factors, these are job-related elements that result from but do not involve the job itself. For example, your pay, your benefits. These are consequences of work but do not involve the work itself. It's not the direct compensable factor. Okay? I mean, benefits are not the direct consequences of work. Okay? It does not involve the work itself, but it's actually a consequence, but it's not a direct consequence. Next is motivator. These job elements are concerning actual tasks and duties. Examples of motivators would be the level of responsibility, the amount of job control, and the interest that the work holds for the employee. Okay, that's the two-factor theory of Herzberg. Okay, remember, hygiene factor and motivator. But Herzberg, if I remember it correctly, if you attain hygiene factors or satisfying motivators, it's not actually the question of which should be satisfied for you to be able to have this satisfaction. Okay, it's actually both of the hygiene and motivator. Okay, we also have the goal setting theory, which is allowing the employee to have a certain goal, such as increasing attendance, selling more products, or reducing the number of grammar error in reports. We know for sure that SMART should be a characteristic of goal. What is SMART? I know for sure that you know what's the meaning of SMART: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. Okay, your goals should be SMART. Okay, and we can also incentivize employees who accomplish goals. In the Premack principle, okay, this is an interesting method of providing incentives that meet the individual needs of each employee, which states that reinforcement is relative and that a supervisor can reinforce an employee with something that on the surface does not appear to be a reinforcer. The best way to explain this principle is to construct a reinforcement hierarchy on which an employee lists his preferences for a variety of reinforcers. Okay? May gagamitin kang reinforcer, pero hindi yun mag-a-appear as a direct reinforcer doon sa employee. Okay? That's the Premack principle. We also have financial rewards, recognitions, travel, individual incentive plans in the form of pay for performance, merit pay, group incentive plan in the form of profit sharing, gain sharing, and stock options. These incentives can be used to allow employees to achieve their goals, also to reward employees who have achieved their goals. Right? Okay. We also have the self-regulation theory, which is allowing employees to monitor their own progress toward attaining their goals and then make the necessary adjustment. That's why it's called self-regulation. For example, when you were attaining a certain goal, you have failed at some point because you failed to regularly attend your job. Okay, there is absenteeism, and then you need to check yourself and then self-regulate for you to achieve your next goal in the future. We also have expectancy theory rather. We have E, I, and V. These are the most important concepts in the expectancy theory. For E, it's called expectancy. This is the perceived relationship between the amount of effort an employee puts in and the resulting outcome. The I is the instrumentality, wherein it is the extent to which the outcome of a worker's performance, if noticed, results in a particular consequence. We also have V, the valence, it's the extent to which an employee values a particular consequence. Okay, so paano siya nagagawa? For example, if that employee expects na hindi siya hindi siya hindi siya mananalo or hindi siya magiging successful sa job, then magpuput siya ng lower effort. Okay? Right. Parang ganyan. Right? So for the equity theory, our levels of motivation and job satisfaction are related to how fairly we believe we are treated in comparison with others. Kaya dito pumapasok yung types of justice. We have procedural justice, wherein this is the fairness of many aspects of work, such as the process of how decisions are made. The outcomes of the decisions is called distributive justice, and the way in which decisions and other information are communicated to employees. That's interactional justice. Okay, so these are just some of the recurring topics in theories of motivation, which is necessary, essential in the board exam. Okay, so please familiarize yourself with these. Okay, now we also have employee engagement. Okay, employee engagement is an organizational strategy of creating positive work conditions that help employees reach their maximum potential at work to result in achieving organizational bottom lines. Employee engagement seeks to motivate employees to integrate themselves into the organization, which makes for better performance and organizational success. Research studies show that when companies have high employee engagement, they have more active and participative employees who are able to focus on their work, serving their customers, and at the same time, creating new avenues to accomplish work. These kinds of employees care for the attainment of organizational goals and put in more effort into achieving these. Engaged employees show for work daily and are less likely to call in sick, making their commitment stronger than ever. Okay? So that is employee engagement, which is an important facet of human resource. Employee engagement is part of organizational psychology. Okay? Tama ba? Yeah. Right? So we also have the 3 types of commitment. So please put in your mind, I can. Okay? So yan ang ating mnemonics for the 3 types of commitment. Number 1 is continuous commitment. This is the extent to which an employee believes she must remain with the organization due to the time, expense, and effort that she has already put into it, or the difficulty she would have in finding another job. So you would stay with the organization because you have been in the organization for 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, okay? Golden anniversary in the organization, or golden anniversary of public service. That's why you are committed to the organization. That's continuous commitment. Next is affective commitment. This is the extent to which an employee wants to remain with the organization because he is caring or she is caring about the organization and is willing to exert effort on its behalf. Meron kang affective attachment doon sa organization. You are able to identify yourself with the vision, mission, goals of the organization. You are actively joining all the activities of your organization or your workplace. Okay? And we also have normative commitment, wherein it is the extent to which an employee feels obligated to the organization and as a result of this obligation must remain with the organization. Okay? You feel obliged to stay. Okay? You feel obliged to stay because it is what you think is right, and meron kang Pwede meron kang binabayaran as a return service. Okay? That's why you must remain with the organization. Now, we have factors affecting job satisfaction and commitment. We have genetic predisposition. Mind you that job satisfaction not only may be fairly stable across jobs, but also may be genetically determined. Harvey and his colleagues arrive at this conclusion by comparing the levels of job satisfaction of 33 sets of identical twins who were separated from each other at an early age. If job satisfaction is purely environmental, there should be no significant correlation between levels of job satisfaction for identical twins who were raised in different environments and who are now working at a different types of jobs. But if identical twins have similar levels of job satisfaction despite being reared apart and despite working at the similar jobs, then a genetic predisposition for job satisfaction is likely, and this is exactly what they have found. Okay, that's why they have believed that job satisfaction and commitment may really have a genetic cause. Okay, some who are genetically predisposed to have high job satisfaction and commitment would be experiencing job satisfaction and commitment. Okay, we also have core self-evaluations. Whether the consistency and job satisfaction is due to genetic or environmental factors, a series of personality variables appear to be related to job satisfaction. That is, certain types of personality certain types of personalities are associated with the tendency to be satisfied or dissatisfied with one's job. Judge, Locke, and Durham have hypothesized that 4 personality variables are related to people's predisposition to be satisfied with life and with their jobs. These are emotional stability, self-esteem, self-efficacy, and external locus of control. Right? We also have intelligence. A study suggests that bright people or more intelligent people have slightly lower job satisfaction than do less intelligent employees in jobs that are not complex. But in complex jobs, the relationship between intelligence and satisfaction is negligible. Okay, so please take note of that. Intelligence has only significant results if the job is not complex, right? Next is social information processing theory. This is also called the social learning theory, and it postulates that employees observe the levels of motivation and satisfaction of other employees and then model those levels. Thus, if an organization's older employees work hard and talk positively about their jobs and their employers, new employees will model this behavior and be both productive and satisfied. The reverse is also true. If veteran employees work slowly and complain about their jobs, then so will the new employees. Okay, that's the social information processing theory, the social learning theory, or the SLT. Okay, I think this is related to the SLT of Bandura, the social learning, the Bobodal experiment, if you can recall this theory. Right. We also have the chance for growth and development. If the organization is giving a chance for growth and development, then there is a high chance that that employee would be attaining job satisfaction and commitment. So the easiest and most common are job rotation, job enlargement, and job enrichment. Okay, with job rotation and job enlargement, an employee learns how to use several different machines or conduct several different tasks within an organization. With job rotation, as earlier said, the employee is given the same number of tasks to do at the same time, but the tasks change from time to time. Okay? For the job enlargement, an employee is given more tasks to do at the same time. A job can be enlarged in two ways: knowledge used and the tasks performed. Okay? Now, how do we measure job satisfaction and job commitment? We can either use, for the measures of satisfaction, we use the FACES scale. This scale is easy to use, however, it is no longer commonly administered, partly because it lacks sufficient detail, it also lacks construct validity, and because some employees believe it is so simple that this is the meaning. What do we mean by construct validity? In psychological assessment, we know that when say validity, a measure, a test should be able to measure what it intends or purports to measure. Construct validity is a type of validity wherein that measure should be able to correlate with already established construct. So if you found the correlation to be significant between a test measuring the same construct, pwede rin siyang concurrent, okay, then that has a construct validity. If a test is that's concurrent. Okay, for construct, you are going to use factor analysis and other types of analytical methods to show that that certain test is really measuring a particular construct. The earlier example would be concurrent validity. Okay. Now, we also have the Job Descriptive Index, or the JDI. This is the most commonly used scale today, and it was developed by Smith, Kendall, and Holland, and consists of a series of job-related adjectives and statements that are rated by employees. The scale yields scores on 5 dimensions of job satisfaction, which are supervision, pay, promotional opportunities, co-workers, and the work itself. We also have the Minnesota Satisfaction Questionnaire, or the MSQ. It's a similar job satisfaction measure developed by Weiss, Dawes, England, and Lofquist. It contains 100 items that yield scores on 20 scales. We also have the Job in General scale, or the GIGS. It's useful when an organization wants to measure the overall level of job satisfaction rather than specific aspects. What do we have here? What are the measures of commitment? We have the Allen and Mayer survey. Okay, it has 24 items, each for the 3 factors mentioned earlier: affective, continuance, and normative commitment. Okay, for effective commitment, it would consist items such as: I would be very happy to spend the rest 7 of my career in this organization. For continuance commitment, it would be very hard for me to leave my organization right now, even if I wanted to. We also have, for normative commitment, I would feel guilty if I left my organization now. We also have the Organizational Commitment Questionnaire, or the OCQ, which is a 15-item questionnaire developed by Maude, Steers, and Porter in 1979 to measure 3 commitment factors. These are acceptance of the organization's values and goals, willingness to work to help the organization, and desire to remain with the organization. Okay. We also have the Organizational Commitment Scale, or the OCS, which is a 9-item developed by Balfour and Weschler that measures 3 aspects of commitment. We have identification, exchange, and affiliation. Okay. Now, what are the consequences of job satisfaction and negative attitudes? We can either have absenteeism, or your employee can have absence without leave, AWOL. Turnover is magre-resign yung employee. Okay, would be escaping the organization because of job dissatisfaction and negative attitude towards the organization. Can also have counterproductive behaviors. Mag-relax siya, would not perform well in the organization, would not perform his task well, relax, lay low, okay, and does not put input to everything in the workplace. We also have lack of organizational citizenship behaviors. Hindi ka pumapasok. Okay? Parang part din siya ng absenteeism. Hindi ka nakikiparticipate sa mga activities ng organization or your institution. Okay? So that is for employee engagement. Right? Next is communication or organizational communication. A pretty easy topic. I would just go over the important or the salient points of organizational communication. Okay? We have actually, these actually are the most commonly asked questions. So we have serial communication. This is where the message is relayed from an employee to her supervisor, then that person would be relaying that to her supervisor, who in turn relays it to her supervisor, and so on until the message reaches the top. Okay, the top management. The problem with serial communication as a form of upward communication, we know for sure that upward, you're going to put the message going up. Okay. The problem here, going back, is the minimize unpleasant messages or the MUM, wherein some of the supervisors would not give unpleasant messages to higher supervisors. Okay, they are minimizing unpleasant messages wherein some lower employees or rank and file employees are already dissatisfied with the job. Pwede siyang i-blur out or pwede siyang i-call out nung supervisor at hindi niya yun iaakyat sa higher supervisor. Yun ang problema sa serial communication kasi one-way siya paakyat yung message. Okay, we also have attitude survey. Okay, this is usually conducted annually by an outside consultant who administers a questionnaire asking employees to rate their opinions on such factors as satisfaction with pay, working conditions, and supervisors. It's called attitude survey. Why is it considered an upward communication? Because this information would be going to your supervisors or to the managers. Okay? Because it's all the ones who are going to answer the survey would be rank and file employees or those at the lower part of the pyramid or the organizational hierarchy. We also have focus group and exit interview. For focus group discussions in research, we know that this should pretty much consist of 9 to 12 people when we do focus group discussions and exit interview. An outside consultant meets with groups of current employees to get their opinions and suggestions. Then the information collected from the focus group discussion or exit interview will be passed on to the management. However, at some public organizations, they do not need to hire an outside consultant. They do the exit interview by themselves. Okay, what is the importance of exit interview and why is it considered as an upward communication? Paakyat kasi yung information papunta sa boss. Okay, whatever the employee has experienced during his training, rather his work, his stay in the office, sasabihin niya yan during the exit interview and the feedback is going up. Okay, that's why it's a form of upward communication. We also have suggestion boxes. This is also a form of upward communication. One particular advantage is it provides a safe voice for subordinates and customers and essential feedback to the organization as well. Now, one thing I noticed while working in DOH is that some, if they have been negatively evaluated by their employees or their subordinates, they would consciously find that rating in the suggestion box and then they would trash that out. So parang wala ring sense that you have your suggestion boxes. They are afraid of critics. Okay, but that's the most way wherein an employee feels safe to put his or her evaluation. Pero in my organization, we do not really count that valid if that person does not put his name, because their statement is that how could we trace, how could we probe the case or the complaint if that person did not indicate his or her name in the form or the suggestion form. Okay, we also have third-party facilitators. We can either use a liaison or an ombudsperson for the upward communication. Sila ang magre-relay nun sa taas or sa management. Okay, we also have downward communication. Kanina upward paakyat, ngayon naman pababa. Okay, and this downward communication originally was conducted because of bolstering employee morale by discussing happy events such as the 3Bs, babies, birthdays, and ball game scores. Now, however, downward communication is considered a key method not only for keeping employees informed, but of communicating what vital information needed by employees to perform their jobs. We have bulletin boards. Okay, you know for sure what is a bulletin board. A policy manual, okay, wherein it's also called employee handbook for some. The policies of the organization, the rules for uniform, conduct inside the organization, decorum, proper decorum, what should be done, what should not be done. These are all placed in the policy manual. It's a downward communication because you're just going to put your message going down. Okay? We also have newsletters. It's designed to bolster employee morale by discussing happy or innocuous events such as the 3Bs. Dito dinidiscuss yung mga birthdays, ball game scores, and babies. Okay? We also have the intranet. Our organization in the DOH has intranet, and it is where memorandum or memoranda are placed and other announcements are placed for us to be updated of what's happening inside the organization. Intranet it's accessible just within the organization. So if you're outside of your organization, you're using a laptop in your home, you cannot access what's inside because it's an intra. It's not an internet. Okay. Now we also have other form of communication. We have earlier we have discussed about downward, upward. We also have business communication. Now, business communication is the transmission of business-related information among employees, management, and customers. Business communication methods include memorandum or memoranda, telephone calls, and email and voice mail. It also includes office design. Okay, some organizations who have an office design wherein the manager is able to see what his or her employees are doing inside the organization, mas maganda ang nangyayari. Mas actually monitor niya kasi compared to where the manager is not visible to the employees. So it's also showing a way wherein the employees are ensured that manager is communicating a message that he or she is welcome to talk with the employees. Okay? Parang ang ibig sabihin nito in layman's term, walang barrier or hindi necessary na merong barrier. So you are welcome to talk with me, to interact with me, and hindi necessary na mas mataas ang tingin ko sa sarili ko compared sa inyo. So that's office design. Okay? Right. So We also have informal communication. So sa informal communication, ang pinaka-key topic here is grapevine. Okay, grapevine. Vine and grapes. Okay, grapevine. We have the single strand grapevine. So for this one, Jones passes a message to Smith, who passes the message to Brown, and so on until the message is received by everyone or someone breaks the chain. This pattern is similar to the children's game of telephone or pass the message. Pwedeng ganon. Okay, basta ipapass ko yung message to other. This is a form of informal communication. That's a formal communication. Pero ano nga ba kasi ang ibig sabihin ng grapevine? Grapevine is a term that can be traced back to the Civil War when loosely hung telegraph wires resembled grapevines. The communication across these lines was often distorted. Because an official employee communication is also thought to be distorted, the term has become synonymous with an informal communication network. Grapevines are common because they provide employees with information, power, and entertainment. Just as earlier discussed, we have the single strand grapevine. We also have the gossip grapevine, wherein Jones passes the message to only a select group of people. Notice that with this pattern, only one person passes the message along and not everyone has a chance to receive or will receive it. Chismis, right? We also have the probability grapevine. Jones passes the message to a few other employees and they in turn randomly pass the message along to other employees. Compared sa gossip, hindi na pinapasa ng gossip. Pero pag sa probability, randomly sinasabi ng pinagsabihan mo ng message to other employees. Kaya siya probability kasi random at random. We also have cluster grapevine. Jones tells only a few select employees who in turn tell a few select employees. Cluster niyang napapasa yung message. They found that employees could be placed into one of three categories. We have the isolates, dead enders, and we also have the liaisons. Okay? Isolates rather were employees who receive less than half of the information. Liaisons were employees who both received most of the information and passed it on to others. And dead enders were those who heard most of the information but seldom passed the message. That's why they are called dead ender. Okay, the grapevine also has two types of information, gossip and rumor. Pareho siyang chismis, okay? But the main difference is that gossip is primarily about individuals and the content of the message lacks significance to the people gossiping. Doon sa nachichismis, hindi siya relevant. Rumor, however, contains information that is significant to the lives of those communicating the message, and it can be about individuals or other topics. Usually, rumor will occur when the available information is both interesting and ambiguous. Okay, so this is for informal communication. So far, we have discussed upward, downward, business, and informal. Now we proceed with interpersonal communication, IPC. Okay, so what is interpersonal communication? It's a communication that happens between groups of people, with people to people, but these are some of the important or relevant factors in interpersonal communication. We have the communication channel, which is having this characteristic of noise. Okay, noise surrounding a transmission channel can affect the way a message is received. Noise can be defined as any interference that affects proper reception of a message. An obvious example would be auditory noise, such as the sound of a subway or elevated train interfering with conversation. That's noise. We also have nonverbal cues in the communication channel. Much of what we communicate is conveyed by nonverbal means. Our words often say one thing, but our actions may mean something or another to other people. We have body language, how we move our body, how we position our body. That is our body language, and that communicate much to people. If you raise your eyebrow when your other employee or co-employee is presenting, then that could communicate something. Okay, that could communicate that you are irritated, unsatisfied with the presentation of that employee. We also have use of space. The ways people make use of space also provides nonverbal cues about their feelings and personality. Dominant people or those who have authority are given more space by others and at the same time take space from others. We have zones in the use of space. We have the intimacy zone, the personal distance zone, the public distance zone. In the intimacy zone, it extends from physical contact to 18 inches away from a person and is usually reserved for close relationships such as dates, spouses, and family. When this zone is entered by strangers in crowded elevators and the like, we generally feel uncomfortable and nervous. That's the intimacy zone. We also have the personal distance zone, which extends from 18 inches to 4 feet away from a person and is the distance usually reserved for friends and acquaintances. The social distance zone is from 4 to 12 feet away and it is observed when dealing with business people and strangers. Okay, uh, that's the other zone pala, sorry. So we have other zone, the social distance zone. It ranges from 4 to 12 feet away and it's reserved for people whom you are dealing with business and strangers. Okay? We also have the public distance zone, which is ranging from 12 feet to 25 feet away and is the characteristic of such large group interactions as lectures and seminars. We also have the use of time. Okay, it is the way people make use of time and is another element of non-verbal communication. We also have para-language. Para-language involves the way we say things and consists of variables such as tone, your tempo, your volume, number and duration of pauses, your rate of speech, mabilis ka bang magsalita? A message that is spoken quickly will be perceived differently from one that is spoken slowly. In fact, research has shown that people with fast speech rates are perceived as more intelligent, friendly, and enthusiastic than people with slow rates of speech. People who use many ums, ers, and as are also considered lesser intelligent people. A final element of nonverbal communication concerns the objects or artifacts. That is a person wearing or with which she surrounds herself. A person who wears bright and colorful clothes is perceived differently from a person who wears conservative white or gray clothing. Okay? Now, we have reactions to communication overload. We have omission, queuing, escape, use of a gatekeeper, and the use of multiple channels. We consciously decide not to process certain information, not intentional but result of processing more than can be handled. That's why we omit. Okay. We also place the work into a queue or waiting line, and the order of the queue can be based on such variables as the message importance, timeliness, or the sender. We can also escape using absenteeism and ultimately through resignation. We can also use the gatekeeper. Okay? A person who screens potential communication and allows only the most important to go through. We also have the use of multiple channels. Now we have styles of listening. We have the listen as an acronym, L for leisure, I for inclusive listening, S for stylistic listening, T for technical listening, E for empathic listening, and N for non-conforming listening. Okay, we also have leadership. Now, we have certain theories again in leadership. Number one is leader emergence. It says that people who become leaders possess traits or characteristics different from people who do not become leaders. This is proven by research. Who tends to become leaders? According to a research, people high in openness, conscientiousness, and extroversion, and low in neuroticism are people who become successful leaders. Those who also have high self-monitoring are becoming or have the higher chance of being a successful leader. Intelligent people can also become successful leaders. Okay? And in terms of motivation to lead, we have this finding is by Chan and Drasgow in 2001, and they found out that motivation to lead has three aspects or factors: affective identity, which become leaders because people with this kind of motivation become leaders because they enjoy being in charge and leading others. Those with a non-calculative motivation seek leadership positions when they perceive that such positions will result in personal gain, while people with a social normative motivation become leaders out of a sense of duty. Okay, so that is leader emergence. Now we also have the task versus person orientation. Over the past 45 years, three major schools of thought, the highest state studies by Fleshman, Harris, and Burt, the Theory X by MacGregor, and Managerial Greed by Blake and Mouton, have postulated that differences in leader performance can be attributed to differences in the extent to which leaders are task versus person-oriented. Person-oriented leaders such as club leaders or country club leaders, Theory Y leaders, and leaders high in consideration act in a warm and supportive manner and show concern for their subordinates. Person-oriented leaders believe that employees are intrinsically motivated, they seek responsibility, are self-controlled, and do not necessarily dislike work. Because of these assumptions, person-oriented leaders consult their subordinates before making decisions. They praise their work, they ask about their families, do not look over their shoulder, and use a more hands-off approach to leadership. Under pressure, person-oriented leaders tend to become socially withdrawn. Okay? We also have task-oriented leaders. Task-oriented leaders such as task-centered leaders, Theory X leaders, and leaders high in initiating structures define and structure their own roles and those of their subordinates to attain the group's formal goals. Task-oriented leaders see their employees as lazy, okay, intrinsically motivated, wanting security, undisciplined, and shirking responsibility. Because of these assumptions, task-oriented leaders tend to manage or lead by giving directives, setting goals, and making decisions without consulting their subordinates. The best leaders of a team are both task and person-oriented, whereas the worst, impoverished, are neither task nor person-oriented. Some leaders may be in the middle of the road, have moderate amounts of both orientation. Higher scorers on consideration or on initiating structure were associated with such positive leadership criteria as follower satisfaction and group performance. The relationship between person orientation and follower satisfaction, follower motivation, and ratings of leadership effectiveness were higher than the relationships between task orientation and these same three leadership criteria. Okay, actually use the we can actually determine the person or task orientation of a certain instrument by several instruments, and one thing that we can use is the leadership or the leader behavior description questionnaire, or the LBDQ, and the leadership opinion questionnaire, or the LOQ. Okay, right, so we also have situational favorability by Fielder's contingency model, or also called the Fielder's contingency model, and has three key terms. We have the task structuredness, leader position power, and leader-member relations. This model holds that any individual's leadership style is effective only in certain situations. Thus, Fiedler, who would argue that rather than teaching people to change their leadership styles, leadership training should concentrate on helping people understand their style of leadership and learn how to manipulate a situation so that the two can match. To help people understand their leadership style, Fielder developed the least preferred co-worker scale, or the LPC. Low-scoring LPC leaders function best in situations that are either favorable or unfavorable, whereas high-scoring LPC leaders function best when the situation is only of moderate favorability. Okay, we also have the leader match. This program is based on Fiedler's belief that an individual's leadership style is not easily changed. Thus, to improve their abilities, leaders learn through 4-hour workshops how to diagnose situations and then change these situations to fit their particular leadership style. Okay, in the task structuredness, okay, structured tasks have goals that are clearly stated and known by group members, have only a few correct solutions to a problem, and can be completed in a few ways. The more structured the task, the more favorable the situation is. For leader position power, that is, the greater the position or legitimate power of the leader, the more favorable the situation. Thus, the group or organizational setting in which there is no assigned leader is not considered to be a favorable leadership situation. For the leader-member relations, the more the subordinates like their leader, the more favorable the situation, and that the leader-member relationship is considered the most important of the three variables. We also have subordinate ability, the path-goal theory, and situational leadership. For the path-goal theory, we can use 4 ways or 4 types of leadership. This is based on the ability of your subordinate. So, when you use instrumental style for planning, organization, and controlling the activities of employees. The supportive style is showing concern for employees. And participative, the leader shares information with employees and lets them participate in decision making. But for achievement-oriented leader, they set challenging goals and rewards increases in performance. For situational leadership, R1 or situation 1, unable and unwilling or insecure employees, they should be using the directing approach. For employees who are unable but willing or confident, leaders should use the coaching approach. For employees who are able but unwilling or insecure, they use emotional support or encouragement. And for employees who are able and willing or confident, then leaders should be using the delegating leadership or the delegating approach. Right, so we also have the LMX theory, leader-member relations. Okay, kanina. We have the in-group subordinates and the out-group subordinates. For the in-group subordinates, those who have developed trusting, friendly relationships with the leader. As a result, The leader deals with in-group members by allowing them to participate in decisions and by really disciplining them. Out-group subordinates, on the other hand, are treated differently from those in the in-group and are most likely to be given direct orders and to have less say about how affairs are conducted in the organization. Okay, that's the LMX theory. We also have leadership through power. We can have these types of power expert. We can lead because we have power, and power can come as an expert power if we have the expert knowledge. It can also be because you have a legitimate power as being because of your position. Reward and coercive power, you are able to give rewards and punishment. And for different power, you are having positive feelings that others hold for you. Okay? Now we also have leadership through vision. Transactional leadership and transformational leadership are two types of leadership through vision. Transactional leadership consists of many of the task-oriented behaviors such as setting goals, monitoring performance, and providing a consequence to success or failure. The transactional leadership is most related to the personality dimension or of extroversion, is positively related to agreeableness, conscientiousness, and openness to experience, and is negatively related to neuroticism. Okay, we have three dimensions of transactional leadership. The contingent reward dimension refers to leaders who reward followers for engaging in desired activity. Management by exception active refers to leaders who are actively monitoring the performance and take corrective actions when needed. Management by exception passive leaders refers to those who do not actively monitor follower behavior and who take corrective action only when problems are serious. We also have transformational leadership, and mostly those leaders in this type of leadership approach have visionary goals. They are charismatic and they are inspirational. It is believed that there are three highly related dimensions to transformational leadership: charisma, intellectual stimulation, and individual consideration. Charisma refers to leaders with high moral and ethical standards who have a strong vision of where they want their followers to go and who use enthusiasm to motivate their followers. Intellectual stimulation, on the other hand, refers to leaders who encourage change and open thinking, challenge the status quo, and appreciate diversity. Individual consideration refers to leaders who encourage individual growth and take the time to mentor and coach their employees. Okay? Now, we also move to group behavior. Okay? Groups and teams are often interchanged semantically. However, groups and teams have considerable differences based on their formation and objective. A group is defined as individuals coming together because of a common purpose or cause, while a team is considered a formation of a group of people that seek to accomplish a task or goal. A work group would have its members gathering for the sake of socialization, establishing relationships, and discussing common interests, while a work team would come together to strategize, report, and navigate tasks in order to get closer to their end goal. We have factors affecting group performance. We have group cohesiveness, which would consist of group homogeneity and group size. Group cohesiveness is the extent to which group members like and trust one another, are committed to accomplishing a team goal, and share a feeling of group pride. Number one, the only factor actually that is considering group cohesiveness is group homogeneity, or one of the factors is group homogeneity. The homogeneity of a group is the extent to which its members are similar. A homogeneous group contains members who are similar in some or most ways, whereas a heterogeneous group contains members who are more different than alike. Group size can also affect group performance. Groups are most cohesive and perform best when group size is small, and studies have shown that large groups have lower productivity, less coordination, and lower morale and are less active, less cohesive, and more critical than smaller groups. In group size, however, um, there are tasks being performed in which a group of the certain group size can perform well. For additive tasks, these are those for which the group's performance is equal to the sum of the performances by each group member. Examples of group performing additive tasks include bowling teams and typing pools. In groups working on additive tasks, each member's contribution is important, and larger groups will probably be better than smaller groups. For conjunctive tasks, these are those for which the group's performance depends on the least effective group member, and because success on a conjunctive task is limited by the least effective member, smaller groups are usually best for conjunctive tasks. For disjunctive tasks, these are those for which the group's performance is based on the most talented group member. As with the additive tasks, the larger groups are probably better at disjunctive tasks than our smaller groups. Okay? We have other factor or theories relevant in affecting group performance, still within the context of group homogeneity. We have social facilitation. Okay, psychologists have studied that social facilitation and social inhibition are two important concepts in not only in social psychology but also in industrial organizational psychology. Social facilitation involves the positive effects of the presence of others of an individual's behavior rather, while social inhibition involves the negative effects of others' presence. Social facilitation and social inhibition can be further delineated by audience effects and co-actions. Audience effects, wherein a group of people passively watch an individual. Okay. We also have co-action. It's the two or more people are performing the same task in the presence of each other. Why do we have social facilitation? It may be because of the mere presence of another. Okay? It naturally produces arousal, and this arousal or increase in energy helps an individual perform well-learned tasks but hinders him in performing poorly learned or unpracticed tasks. We also have comparison, evaluation apprehension, okay, and we also have distracting. Social loafing, on the other hand, is another theory, and this is because group members realize that their individual efforts will not be noticed. There is a little chance of individual reward, so that's why that employee would rather choose social loafing. Now, this is explained by two other theories. We have the free rider theory, wherein postulates that when things are going well, a group member realizes that his effort is not necessary and does not work as hard as he would if he were alone. If this explanation is true, social loafing should occur only when a group project is going well. We also have sucker effect, wherein it hypothesizes that social loafing occurs when a group member notices that other group members are not working hard and thus are playing him for a sucker. To avoid this situation, the individual lowers his work performance to match those of those other members. Okay? Now we also have groupthink. Groupthink most often occurs when the group is cohesive, is insulated from qualified outsiders, has an illusion of invulnerability, infallibility, or both. They believe that they are morally superior to their adversaries. They're under great pressure to conform. They have a leader who promotes a favorite solution and has gatekeepers who keep information from other group members. Groupthink is different from group polarization because group polarization is defined as a phenomenon when members of a deliberating group move toward a more extreme point in whatever direction is indicated by the members' pre-deliberation tendency. Group polarization leads to changing attitudes among individuals within the group. In addition, group polarization can lead to groupthink, which is when bad decisions are made by a group because some of its members don't want to express their opinions by using gatekeepers. So how do we reduce groupthink? The group leader should not state his own position or beliefs until late in the decision-making process. The leader should also promote open discussion and encourage group members to speak. A group or committee can be separated into subgroups to increase the chance of disagreement, and one group member can be assigned the job of a devil's advocate, one who questions and disagrees with the group. Okay? Finally, we have organizational development. Organizational development in managing change, we want to look at sacred cows. Okay? Organizational sacred cows are practices that have been around for a long time and invisibly reduce productivity. A sacred cow hunt, then, is an organization-wide attempt to get rid of practices that serve no useful purpose for the organization. We can use the paper cow, which are unnecessary paperwork. We also have meeting cows, number and length of meetings, and the speed cow, unnecessary deadlines. In the stages of change, I want you to memorize 3Ds plus AI as a stage. The first three would be denial, defense, and discarding, and the second two would be adaptation and internalization. So what happens in the denial stage? During this stage, employees deny that any change will actually take place. They try to convince themselves that the old way is working and create reasons why the proposed changes will never work. In the defense stage, employees begin to believe that change will actually occur. They become defensive and try to justify their positions and ways of doing things. In the discarding stage, employees begin to realize not only that the organization is going to change, but that the members or the employees are going to have a change as well. In the adaptation stage, employees test the new system, they learn how it functions, and begin to make adjustments in the way they perform. In the last stage, the internalization, employees have become immersed in the new culture. They become comfortable with the new system and accepted their new co-workers and work environment. We also have 5 types of people being changed. We have the change agents, the change analysts, the receptive changers, the reluctant changers, and the change resistors. Change agents are people who enjoy change and often make changes just for the sake of it. They say, if ain't broke, break it. Okay? The change analysts are not afraid, on the other hand, to change or make changes, but want to make changes only if the changes will improve their organizations. Their motto might be, if it ain't broke, leave it alone. If it's broke, fix it. The receptive changes are people who probably will not instigate change but are willing to change. Their motto would be, if it's broke, I'll help fix it. Reluctant changers, on the other hand, will certainly not instigate or welcome change, but they will change if necessary. Their motto would be, are you sure it's broken? And for the change resistors, they hate change. They are scared by change and will do anything they can to keep change from occurring. Their motto would be, it may be broken, but it's still better than the unknown. In organizational change, we follow certain steps. So after we assess the new culture, We are going to create dissatisfaction with the old culture, just as creating dissatisfaction with the status quo in general is necessary to promote change. For employees to accept a new culture, the existing culture and status quo must be upset. This might mean communicating to employees the future impact of continuing to do business as usual. After creating a dissatisfaction with the old culture, you must maintain the new culture. If the new culture is expected to last, developing new reward systems and selection methods should occur. These rewards can include pay for performance in jobs that have increased responsibilities due to the new culture or other changes. Now, your final step is to select employees. Okay, future employees should be selected on the basis of how well they organize or how well rather they epitomize the new culture. For example, if the new culture is one of the team decision making, new employees should have not only the ability but the willingness and personality to perform in such an environment. Okay? Now we should be involving our employees in the organization for us to really spark change. Okay? We have the decision-making strategies using the Vroom and Newton model. For autocratic one, this is a strategy wherein leaders use the available information to make the decision without consulting their subordinates. For autocratic 2, leaders obtain the necessary information from their subordinates and then make their own decisions. For consultative 1, leaders share their problem on an individual basis with some or all of their subordinates. After receiving their input, the leader makes a decision that may or may not be consistent with the thinking of the group. For consultative 2, the leaders share the problems with their subordinates as a group, and after receiving the group's input, the leader makes a decision that may or may not be acceptable to the group. For the Group 1 strategy, the leader shares the problem with the group and lets the group reach a solution. The role of the leader is merely to assist in the decision-making process. Okay? Now we also have levels of input of employees. For the following, employees here have no real control over the jobs. They are given instructions about what to do, when to do it, and how it should be done. For the ownership of own product, employees are still told what to do, but are solely responsible for the quality of their output. For advisory, on the other hand, employees are asked to provide feedbacks, suggestions, and inputs into a variety of organizational concerns. For shared or participative or team, it allows an employee to make a decision. However, this decision is made at a group level. For the absolute, employee input and control gives an employee the absolute authority to make a decision on his own. There is no group consensus and no supervisory approval. Okay, finally, we're going to tackle work schedules. Number 1 is compressed work weeks. These deviations from the typical 5-day work week are called compressed work weeks and usually involve either 10 hours a day for 4 hours or for 4 days or 12 hours a day for 3 days. We also have moonlighting. The same concern applies to employees working more than one job or moonlighting. We also have flexible work hours, and in flexible work hours, we have bandwidth, core hours, and flexible hours as key terms. Bandwidth is the total number of potential hours available for work each day. The core hours would consist of the hours during which an organization is busiest with its outside contacts. Now, if you deduct the core hours with the bandwidth, then you obtain your flexible hours because these hours would be the remaining in the bandwidth in which the employee has a choice for working. Gliding time is when an employee can choose his or her own hours without advance notice or scheduling. And we also have the flexitour or modified flexitour, wherein employees enjoy greater flexibility but must have prior scheduling and advance notice. Okay, we also have the peak time pay, wherein certain employees are encouraged to work only part-time but are paid at a higher hourly rate for those hours that employees who work full-time. We also have job sharing, which is offered by 19% of organizations and involves two employees who share their work hours, rather than one person, for example, working 40 hours each week. Two employees combine their hours so that they total 40 hours. We also have work at home, and particularly we have telecommuting. However, this is where an employee uses a computer to electronically interact with a central office. Other terms commonly used for telecommuting would be telework and mobile working. Finally, we have shift work. Shifts can be either fixed or rotated. With fixed shifts, separate groups of employees permanently work the day shift, swing shift, and night shift. Rotating shifts are those in which an employee rotates through all three shifts, working the day shift for a while, then switching to the swing shift, then working the night shift. So that's it for the discussion on industrial organizational psychology. For this section, we have tackled training and development, employee motivation, employee engagement, organizational communication, leadership, group behavior, and organizational development. Thank you everyone for listening.